Three spine-chilling true stories of sinister thunderstorms. Unexplained horrors exposed. Sarah gripped the kitchen counter tightly, a tangle of memories and fears choking her insides. She could see the storm gathering outside her window, black clouds swirling like hungry beasts. Thunder rumbled in the distance, an unwelcoming growl that sent shivers down her spine. The once peaceful evenings filled with laughter in her quaint Maple Hollow home felt miles away from the chaos she had just escaped. Now, tucking Mia and Jake into bed, she reveled in their warmth, almost forgetting the impending storm. Just as she smoothed Jake's hair, a low roar erupted from above, reverberating through the walls like a warning siren. With a heavy heart, Sarah switched off the nightlight. The darkness enveloped her like a shroud, the only illumination coming from streaks of ominous lightning that split the sky. This storm was different. A sinister force seemed to linger on the air, tasting of dread. The wind howled, whispering secrets only meant for those who dared to listen. A prickle danced along her skin as she recalled nightmarish stories of families lost amidst thunderstorms, mere tales of townspeople whispered over coffee cups. But tonight, the crackling electricity in the air felt personal, pulling her closer to the edge of her own fear. Suddenly, a figure appeared in her front yard. Tom, the neighbor. He was stalwart and capable, the kind of man who once saved lives as a firefighter. "Need any help, Sarah?" he called, his voice tinged with an intensity that made her heart pound. She offered a forced smile, though an unsettling twitch of unease took root in her stomach, urging her to retreat. "No, I'm okay," she replied, wishing she could shake the feeling that seemed to grip her. Before she could pull herself away, the storm broke with relentless fury. Rain lashed against the windows, sounding like 1,000 tiny fists pounding at the door. The electricity flickered, teasing her with a moment of light before plunging her into a darkness that felt alive and predatory. Panic twisted inside her when she reached for her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed. "Please, I need you to send someone." But the voice on the other end dismissed her concerns as mere anxiety over a minor inconvenience, leaving her feeling utterly helpless. Her heart raced as she stepped into the dimly lit hallway, gripping the edge of the door frame like a lifeline. Just then, she heard the Mia and Jake stirring. She rushed to their room, only to find their little bodies in a trance, sleepwalking toward the door. Terror washed over her as their vacant expressions sent chills racing up her spine. "Guys, wake up. It's just a storm," she pleaded, but her words felt muffled by the tempest outside. Compelled by raw fear and a primal instinct to protect, she pushed against the storm's gale, heading for Tom's house. Clouds above roiled and churned as she stumbled forward, every raindrop a deafening warning. Glimpses of shadowy figures flitted in her peripheral vision, fear planting seeds of doubt. When she finally confronted Tom, the facade he had worn slipped, revealing cracks in his genial exterior. "You shouldn't be out here, Sarah," he said, words too smooth, too rehearsed. Thunder clapped over her heartbeat as he began to unravel the dark history of their town. She teetered on the precipice of understanding something horrifying and crucial, but the raw tension in the air ignited once more. Before she could grasp it, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated Tom's face, and for the first time, she felt true fear. Her instincts screamed that the real danger was closer than the storm itself. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Each clap of thunder echoed like a death knell, and the shadows closed in, twisting in menacing shapes. As the storm crescendoed, shards of lightning illuminated the dark, swirling chaos, whispering chilling words. "It's time to let go." The walls around her felt like they were closing in, and in that moment of paralysis, she faced a chilling truth. What lurked in the darkness of Maple Hollow was much more than just a storm. It was something far more sinister. Who could she trust when even her instincts betrayed her? The wind howled, a banshee's wail mingling with the clamor of the storm. Sarah stood frozen, the weight of Tom's gaze pinning her in place. His casual demeanor had vanished, replaced by a darkness that pulsed just beneath the surface of his skin. Distorted by flashes of lightning, his eyes glimmered dangerous, reflecting not just the storm, but something far deeper. "Tom, what do you mean?" she stammered, incredulity choking her voice. Anxiety churned violently in her stomach. She knew she should turn and run, but her feet felt glued to the soaking ground. "People around here have gone missing before, during storms like this," he replied, a hint of something between fear and glee threading through his tone. The thunder cracked again, creating a brutal symphony of discord that seemed to echo his words. While he spoke, a flash of lightning illuminated their surroundings, revealing shadows dancing behind him, twisted shapes slinking among the trees, staying just outside the edges of the light. "Tom," she shouted over the roar of the tempest, fear tearing through her like shards of glass. "What are you talking about?" His grin widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "This storm, Sarah, it calls to them." Panic seized her as she turned to scan the darkness. In the flickers of light, she thought she saw Mia and Jake, their tiny forms still stumbling away from the house, driven by unseen forces. No, they couldn't be caught in this chaos. "I have to go," she cried, finally breaking free from her paralysis. She whirled back toward the path home, heart racing as she pushed against the relentless wind. "Don't." Tom's voice cut through the howling winds, sharp and urgent. "You can't stop what has already begun." But Sarah was no longer listening to him. Each step towards her children felt like a battle against the very storm that threatened to consume her. Raindrops fell like leaden weights, and the tempest's breath seemed to gloat as she fought through the darkness. The shadows whispered her name, layering unsettling echoes with every crack of thunder. "Sarah, Sarah," the voice shifted, warping between her fears and doubts, shaping phantom hands that grasped at her ankles, trying to pull her down. "Get away from them," she screamed, her spirit burning brighter than the storm's fury. But the more she fought, the more disoriented she became. The trees twisted unnaturally, their limbs reaching out, blocking her path. Lightning struck nearby, and shadows flickered faster now, encroaching around her like hungry wolves. She burst through the door, breathless and wild. The house felt frozen in time. The rain pounded with a frantic beat, crashing against the windows. She rushed to the bedroom, her pulse thundering as she threw herself through the door. Mia and Jake were no longer where she had left them. The beds were empty, sheets an untidy mess, the air thick with the scent of dampness and fear. It crashed against her chest like a freight train, alive and agonizing. "Guys," she called, her voice cracking. Silence swallowed her desperation whole. She turned in a frantic circle, straining to hear any hint of movement. Then she saw a flicker of light beneath the closet door, pulsing erratically, drawing her in with magnetic fear. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle. "Please, God," she whispered, almost choking on her own terror. She understood then that the storm was just a backdrop to something more terrible, a malignant force unleashed just beyond the threshold of her reality. With a deep, shaky breath, she yanked open the door. What lay inside would break her world forever. Did dark forces reside within those walls, or would the storm itself become her last guardian? The door creaked open, and Sarah felt a rush of cold air enveloping her. The flickering light danced wildly, casting erratic shadows against the walls that twisted and contorted into grotesque shapes. Her heart pounded as she peered inside, searching for any sign of her children. The closet, usually tidy and mundane, now felt like a dark portal to the unknown. "Mia? Jake?" she called again, voice tremulous, barely breaking through the storm's clamor. The pulsing light grew brighter, and a low, resonant hum vibrated through the floorboards, sending chills spiraling down her spine. It was as if the very house was reacting to her fear. Within that small, dark space, something else stirred. The light oscillated, revealing outline after outline, nothing solid, but not mere tricks of her mind either. They moved closer, and her eyes widened in horror. A veil of shadows lurked among her children's clothes, whispering secrets too sinister for ordinary ears. A shiver crept down Sarah's back as she leaned in closer. The shadows started to take form, reminding her of both Mia and Jake. Their faces pale, gaunt, and eerily expressionless emerged from the darkness beneath the hangars. "Help us, Mommy," they echoed, their voices warped and layered as if multiple children were speaking at once. "No," she gasped, stumbling back from the closet, colliding against the doorframe. "This isn't real." But the voices persisted, haunting the corners of her mind, mixing with the thunder crashing outside. "The storm. It needs us," they chanted, their eyes shimmering with ghostly light. Sarah felt her limbs grow heavy, as if they were being weighed down by unseen hands. A part of her wanted to flee, but another urged her to step forward, to reach into the dark for her children. They were right there, begging, pleading. Just then, a deafening crack of thunder reverberated through the house, shaking the walls violently. It sounded almost like a warning. With each rumble, Sarah's sense of reality began to blur. Had Tom spoken the truth? The storm had awoken something. Something that lurked beyond the veil of this world. Time seemed to freeze as her resolve shattered. "Please come to me," she shouted, her voice drenched in panic. "Just show yourselves." The closet erupted into silence, the shadows retracting into the depths as if they had never been. For a fleeting moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. But then the closet door slammed shut, rattling the walls with a finality that echoed a horrifying truth: her children weren't just lost, they were gone. "Sarah," a voice whispered low and smooth from the stillness of the room. One that wasn't Mia or Jake, but something much darker. It sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over her. The mirror on the wall caught her reflection, and for an instant, she saw not just herself but a distorted figure lurking just behind her, a shadow wearing Tom's face. "You can't escape this," it whispered, the words rolled off its tongue like poison. Panic ignited within her as she scrambled towards the bedroom window, the pounding rain now swirling into a thick curtain over the outside world. Lightning crackled, and the dark shapes outside danced as if in celebration. The very elements were conspiring against her. The walls of the house seemed to close in, the air thick with an unnameable presence. Sarah was certain that if she didn't flee now, she'd be trapped forever. She turned back towards the door, her heart racing, limbs trembling. But when she opened it, she found darkness, an endless void that swallowed her scream before it could even escape her throat. What horrible fate lay beyond those walls? Would she step into that void, or was there yet a last chance to save Mia and Jake from the storm that called to them? In that moment, a mind-shattering realization hit her. The storm was only just beginning. The darkness hung like a thick fog, wrapping around Sarah with an insidious grip. She stood paralyzed, breath caught in her throat. The void beckoned her, pulsating with the beat of her own frantic heart. The cold air swept past her, a whisper of fate urging her on. "Mommy," the voice came again, this time softer, yet suffused with such despair that it felt like nails scraping against her sanity. It emanated not from the closet, but from somewhere deeper within the house, a recess that appeared to call her name. The shadows shifted, swirling around her feet, as if dancing to an unseen rhythm. Each flick of the lightning outside drew contorted shapes on the walls, the remnants of some nameless dread. She could almost hear the walls breathing, their wooden veins pulsing with an unholy life of their own. "Don't leave us," the echoes of her children weaved through her mind, a siren's song luring her toward that darkness. Fear clawed at her throat. She had to make a choice. The void was a tempting escape, but then, how could she abandon her children? "Focus, Sarah," she hissed through gritted teeth, forcing her legs to move. She needed a plan, some way to combat the shadows that choked hope from the room. The hallway stretched before her, dimly lit by the flickering bulbs that hung like ghosts from the ceiling. Each step felt weighted, every creak of the floor sending her heart racing. As she moved deeper into the house, the walls whispered secrets. They echoed the storm beyond, rattling with rage. "Mommy," the voice was closer now, swirling through the cracks and gaps in the old house. She could sense her children's presence, just beyond her reach, trapped in the web of shadows that ensnared the building. Clenching her fists in determination, Sarah let her instincts take over. Then she saw it. A silhouette standing at the far end of the hallway. A child? Her heart leapt. "Mia," she shouted, rushing forward. But the shape dissolved into the shadows before her eyes, retreating into the darkness. Dread filled her veins. The house was alive, a living entity feeding on her despair. "Don't chase it," Something deep within screamed. She couldn't trust it. The house would twist her hopes away, shatter her sanity like glass. But she had no time. The storm raged outside. The wind screamed, filling the air with chaos. A crack of lightning illuminated a door at the end of the hall, partially ajar. Thoughts of her children surged within her, fragmenting her resolve. "Please, I have to find you," she cried, rushing toward that door. As she grasped the handle, the air thickened, swirling with icy fingers that gripped her throat. In that moment, a voice familiar and sinister crawled into her mind. "You will find them, but you will lose yourself." Summoning every ounce of courage, Sarah flung open the door. The room beyond was brimming with wild shadows that twisted around a spiral staircase, descending into darkness. A notion scorched her thoughts. What if Mia and Jake were down there, waiting for her? The void of the stairwell looked ominous, but it also felt like a chance at saving them. Or was it? Steeling herself, Sarah stepped onto the first step, each creak beneath her feet resonating with fear. The shadows whispered, promising truths as they slithered closer, wrapping around her legs. But then just below, a low growl echoed, an almost tangible threat. What waited beneath? Was it a way to save her children, or would it drag her down into the depths of despair? As she descended, her doubts multiplied, and with each step, Sarah felt the storm stirring inside her, a tempest that could consume her whole. The air thickened as Sarah descended, her heart a frantic drum in her chest. Each step felt like a betrayal of her sanity, the whispers of the shadows clawing at her mind, filling it with doubts. What if this was a trap? But what choice did she have? She had to save her children. The spiral staircase twisted deeper into the bowels of the house. It felt alive, pulsing under her feet, as if the very foundation resented her presence. The growl from below reverberated through the chill, sending icy tendrils of dread creeping down her spine. Something was waiting for her. There's something that thirsted for fear. "Mommy." The voice was sharper now, laced with urgency like a knife, slicing through the layers of darkness. It was Mia. It had to be her. Sarah's legs moved faster, pain igniting her calves, each step a battle against the shadows pulling at her. At the bottom, a dim light flickered, and her heart soared hope through anguish. She rushed toward it, but as she turned the corner, a maw of darkness gaped before her, swallowing the pale light whole. The growl transformed into a guttural laugh, echoing off the damp walls. It was a sound that gnawed at her insides. "Join us," the voice slithered through the air, pulling her close. Tendrils of shadow curled around her ankles, making her feet heavy, unyielding. The house was a living entity, and it sought to claim her, to wrap her in its suffocating embrace. "Please, just let me through," she shouted, desperation surging up her throat. "Stay with us, Mommy." The shadows writhed, forming the wispy shapes of her children, faces twisted in anguish. "We need you here." "No," she screamed, shaking her head violently. They were illusions, deceptions created by the darkness. She could feel it in her bones. But how could she fight against the very essence of despair that wanted to turn her into one of its puppets? Suddenly, a pair of small, cold hands gripped her wrist, pulling her closer. Sarah gasped, her whole body freezing at the touch. "Mommy." "Mia?" she croaked, heart in her throat as tears streamed down her face. But the voice was warped and hollow, echoing in a tone that struck terror in her heart. It wasn't her daughter. It was a lure, a cruel trick of the shadows designed to ensnare her deeper into the abyss. "Come play, Mommy. It's safe down here. Come play." She fought against the pull, squirming away, suddenly aware of the tightness in her chest. The shadows tightened their grip, their laughter growing louder and more mocking. Panic rose within her, a white-hot flame. With a primal scream, she ripped herself free, stumbling backward. The growl returned, a warning echoing low and deep. A dark creature, formless yet menacing, began to rise from the shadows, its eyes glowing with malice. Sarah's heart raced. Fight or flee? She turned and dashed back up the staircase, each step now a lifeline. The growls morphed into furious roars, echoing into madness behind her. She couldn't look back. She had to reach the light, she had to find her children. But as she reached the top, the door slammed shut. A barrier of shadows trapped her inside the house's grip. "Let me out," she screamed, pounding against the wood. The darkness answered with a deafening silence. Fear consumed her as she realized she was completely alone. But then, a whisper, soft yet clear, teased her ear. You will find them, but can you endure what lies ahead? A cold sweat broke across her brow as she heard it again, the faint echo of Mia's laughter, masked with an undercurrent of darkness. Where were they? What had the house truly become? Sarah's thoughts raced, a new plan forming as her heart drummed louder. She couldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. And as the shadows thickened, a revelation struck her like lightning. Was this house a prison or a gateway to something much worse? With a renewed determination, she turned toward the impenetrable darkness. What awaited her on the other side? Were her children lost forever, or was there still a way to save them? The answers lurked in the shadows, and Sarah resolved to find them, whatever the cost. Sarah's breath came in sharp gasps as she summoned her strength, staring into the abyss that stretched out before her. The darkness writhed, and she could almost see it pulsating, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. She stepped forward, resolved to confront whatever lay hidden within. "Mommy, don't leave us," the voices came again, this time blending into a terrible symphony of sorrow and despair. She clutched her head, the cacophony pounding against her skull. It felt like claws were raking through her mind, each note pulling her deeper into the void. "No," she cried, forcing herself to block them out. She had to focus. Mia and Jake were counting on her. Stumbling, she crossed the threshold into the darkness. Instantly, the air grew cold, wrapping around her like a chilling embrace. Shadows danced against the walls, elongating and twisting as if living entities longing for her to join them. An overwhelming sense of dread sank like a stone in her stomach. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, yet she pushed forward, her heart a drum of defiance. At first, it was just the echo of her own footsteps, but soon, a second rhythm emerged, a heavy scraping sound that seemed to move in time with her own heartbeat. The house was alive, and its hunger was palpable. "Mia," she called, voice cracking as she forced herself to keep moving. The shadows flickered, momentarily shaping into something almost human before melting back into the void. "Mommy." The voice was distinct this time, a frantic plea that seemed to tear through the very fabric of the darkness. Sarah's hope ignited anew, pushing her further into the shadows. Then, she saw a dim light flickering in the distance like a solitary star in a stormy sky. She ran toward it, feet pounding against the cold floor. But as she drew closer, the light began to fade, twisting back into the engulfing darkness. The scraping noise intensified, and with it, an unbearable weight pressed down upon her chest. Suddenly, the room shook violently, and great tendrils of mist coiled around her legs, dragging her down. Panic surged, her breath quickening. "Let me go? Please." Terror coursed through her as she found herself in a severe struggle, like a rabbit caught in a snare. The ground seemed to shift beneath her, the walls closing in, whispering secrets she could not comprehend. "Mommy," the voice conjured her resolve, and she fought with every ounce of strength. She heaved back against the shadows, her screams piercing the silence, drowning out their mocking laughter. With an almost primal scream, she lunged toward the fading light again, and this time, it did not disappear. It expanded, growing brighter as she barreled through. But just before she reached it, the ground lurched violently. A low growl developed into a hideous roar behind her, and she could feel the creature's hot, foul breath on her neck. No, not now. There was no choice. She leaped, tumbling forward into the light. For a brief moment, she felt weightless, a fragile bubble of hope enveloping her. But as she landed on the cold, damp floor, the world around her shifted. The light extinguished, plunging her into an even deeper despair. "Mommy!" The cries of her children echoed around her, lost in the dark. She threw her hands up, searching desperately for anything tangible to hold on to. The shadows thickened, swirling with a life of their own. With every heartbeat, they closed in tighter, flickering shapes forming from the edges of her vision. In that moment, she realized she was no longer just in the house, but locked in a battleground of wills. "Join us, don't fight," the voice of the house coiled around her, silky and insidious, feeding off her fears. Something was coming. Sarah's heart pounded wildly as she prepared herself to face whatever monstrosity emerged from the shadows. But would she find her children here, or would she discover that she too had become another lost soul, trapped forever in this nightmare? As she steadied her breath, a chilling thought pierced through her mind. What if the shadows were only the beginning of a darkness far worse? And just then, a cold laugh echoed, sending shivers down her spine. The door swung ajar behind her, revealing a swirling portal of blackness. Every instinct screamed for her to turn away, yet something beckoned her forward. What awaited her on the other side? Would she dare to cross it, even for the sake of her children? The portal loomed ominously, a gaping maw ready to swallow her whole. Sarah hesitated, dread splintering through her resolve. Each heartbeat was a hammer pounding against her chest, urging her to flee, yet a whisper deeper than the shadows called her closer. Mia? Jake, she couldn't leave them. Taking a deep breath, she stepped through the threshold, the darkness swallowing her completely. Like an icy wave, the cold enveloped her, wrapping tightly around her limbs and constricting her airways. She gasped, eyes wide, adjusting to the void. Flashes of light sparkled around her, tiny pinpricks like distant stars in a night sky. With a lurch, those stars morphed into faces. Faces hidden in a mass of shadows, their eyes glimmering with hunger. Join us, they murmured in unison, their whispers intertwined like a sinister lullaby. No, Sarah screamed, clenching her fists. She refused to let them pull her in. She had to find her kids. Panic rose within her, sharp and bitter. The echoes of laughter surrounded her, a cruel chorus that squeezed at her throat. "Mommy, come play." The shadows cooed, as tendrils curled around her ankles, anchoring her in place. Desperate, Sarah frantically surveyed her surroundings, searching for an escape. The shadows no longer appeared as disembodied voices. They formed amorphous figures with haunting faces, kids without bodies, twisted with sorrow, longing for release. The image of Mia and Jake pushed her to fight. "Not my children. You want to take them." Fueled by rage, she stumbled forward, pulling against the dark, chains dragging her down. Every inch was a struggle, her feet felt like lead. With sheer will, she forced herself to move. The figures writhed and shrieked, their faces morphing into a grotesque blend of fury and despair. But then an unexpected warmth flickered within her, an unyielding spark of love for her children. With renewed strength, she screamed, "I'm coming for you. Hold on." Suddenly, a vile, guttural roar erupted from behind, loud enough to drown out the whispers. The ground trembled as vibrations rippled through her body. Something was coming, not just shadows, but something relentless and hungry for her. Out of the depths of the darkness, a hulking beast stepped forward, solid, menacing. Its eyes glowed like molten copper, reflecting a primal rage. Sarah froze, paralyzed by fear. The air thickened with its rancid breath, a miasma of rot and despair. The creature lunged, sharp claws extending toward her. "Mommy!" The cries of her children rang out again, desperate and heart-wrenching. Their voices cut through the terror, guiding her back to her purpose. Instinct kicked in. She dodged, darting to the side and plunging deeper into the darkness. The creature snarled and gave chase, each step echoing like a death knell. As she ran, shadows thickened around her, trying to pull her into their embrace. The battle between survival and despair raged inside her. She sprinted, the cold seeping through her skin, her heart racing. "Where are you, Mia? Jake?" The maze of shadows twisted and shifted, an ever-changing landscape designed to confuse her. Every turn felt hopeless, and every breath she took felt like a gasp for life itself. But then, through the gloom, she spotted a flicker of light, a faint glow shimmering like a beacon. With renewed determination, she seized on that flicker. The voices of her children surged around her, a whirlwind carrying her forward. "Mommy!" The urgency in their calls propelled her speed. The creature's roar erupted again, vibrating in her bones. It was getting closer. The light grew brighter, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. But as she raced toward the warmth, a sudden chill enveloped her, freezing her to the spot. The darkness screamed, clawing at her, desperate to keep her from breaking through. Would she escape? Or would the darkness consume her, shrouding her in an eternal night? As she stood on the precipice of hope and despair, the beast's growl turned into a chorus of mockery, echoing deeper into the dark abyss. And then, just as she felt her resolve fade, Don't leave us, Mommy. Came the urgent call again. Sarah's heart stuttered. Could she really reach them? Would time run out before she could find the light again? The glow ahead pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with every desperate dash. Sarah pushed through the suffocating shadows, her feet pounding against a surface that felt both solid and fickle, like walking on a tightrope strung over a chasm of despair. She could hear the beast's snarls behind her, a relentless predator hungry for her flesh, yet the cries of her children fueled her instinct to survive. Mia, Jake, she called, her voice hoarse. Each shout seemed to crumble under the weight of darkness, but she pressed on, the flickering light guiding her like a lifeline. As she barreled forward, the shadows thickened, clawing at her limbs. The cries transformed, echoing around her in a dissonant choir, their taunts growing louder and more mocking. Join us, they screamed. Give in. But each time Sarah felt their words sink into her thoughts, she pushed back, summoning the image of Mia's beaming smile and Jake's adventurous spirit. Then, just as hope glimmered brighter, a hand shot out from the shadows, icy fingers wrapping around her wrist. Sarah recoiled, gasping in shock. Another face emerged, twisted and anguished, a child with hollow eyes that begged for freedom. Help me, it wailed, reaching towards her. No, you're just like the others, she shouted. Panic surged as she yanked free, stumbling backward. The figure let out a gurgled cry, retreating into the dark, but not before Sarah glimpsed a glimmer of familiarity. Was it just a trick of light, or did it resemble Mia? Terror gripped her. Doubt seeped in. Was that just a projection of her fears, or something more sinister? She couldn't let herself be distracted. Time was slipping through her fingers, and the beast was only steps behind. She lunged towards the light again, now stable and bright enough to cast away the shadows. But as she neared, it twisted into something else, an entrance, a doorway that gleamed with the potential for escape. Yet, as she reached out, a deafening growl sent vibrations into her bones. The creature loomed once more, rage amplifying its presence. It bore down on her, and in that moment of pure terror, she saw it was not just a monster, it was a manifestation of her deepest fears, something that fed off sorrow and despair. It was a mirror of her greatest anxieties as a mother, hungry to swallow her whole. No, she screamed, standing her ground, adrenaline coursing. You want to take me or my children? With one last surge, she sprinted through the threshold, but the shadows lashed out, clawing at her heels. For an instant, she felt the beast's breath against her neck, a foul reminder of its relentless pursuit. Then, she burst through the doorway only to find herself in a nightmare of another kind. The room was like a distorted reflection of her life, familiar yet unsettling, filled with toys, clothing, and photos that no longer held warmth. A whispered voice, soothing yet off-kilter, beckoned her from the darkness. Welcome home, Sarah. A chill of dread spilled over her, and the walls began to shift, the pictures morphing into horrid faces. Was this part of the torment? Had she escaped the creature only to find herself ensnared in something worse? The last thing she remembered was a sudden flash of her children's laughter, now tainted with an underlying darkness. It felt wrong, too wrong. And as the laughter faded into haunting echoes and shadows streamed closer, she realized in horror that not only had she entered a realm of despair, but she was utterly trapped between two nightmares, the beast that chased her and the insidious embrace of whatever awaited. Mommy, the desperate voice rang clear once more, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. But was it truly her children calling, or just another illusion? The darkness began to close in around her, mocking and relentless. In that moment, she understood. She had to make a choice, and make it fast. Could she conquer this new hallway of horrors, or would she succumb to the shadows forever? Sarah's heart pounded like a war drum, reverberating through her chest as she faced the walls closing in on her. The air grew thick with a palpable dread that wrapped around her, squeezing her lungs. Shadows writhed, whispering incoherently, and the once familiar surroundings twisted into something grotesque. Mommy! The voice again, sweet yet grating, sent shockwaves through her veins. She turned sharply, eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. A figure flickered in the gloom, small, fragile. Mia? Sarah's plea barely escaped her lips, the name tasting like ash. The figure stepped closer, and hope sparked. But then it shifted. The features wavered, paint peeling away to reveal something darker, hungry eyes, a twisted mouth. It wasn't Mia. Another phantom, another trick. Join us, it hissed, voice echoing with malice. We need you. No, she screamed, hands tightening into fists. I want tea. I refuse. As if her defiance spurred them on, more figures emerged from the shadows. Children, ghostly remnants of laughter, each one wearing a mask of despair, their hollow eyes pleading for something she could not grasp. They darted back and forth, their laughter mingling with sobs, creating a cacophony that was both enchanting and sickening. Help us, Mommy, they chorused, voices layered like sinister harmonies. Each word was a blade, slicing through her resolve. Stop it, she shouted, shutting her eyes against the onslaught of memories the visions dragged with them. Footsteps pounded behind her, closer now, heavier. The beast was barreling toward her, dragging the stench of decay, clamoring for the taste of her soul. She spun on her heel, desperation clawing at her throat. The doorway loomed behind her, now teeming with otherworldly light that pulsed and throbbed, urging her to flee. But the beast had forced itself between her and escape. The growl filled the air, thick as smoke, enveloping her in a chilling embrace. Choose, it roared. She was paralyzed, caught between the voices of her lost children and the advancing horror of demise. Mommy, we're here. The call broke through the cacophony, clearer now, unmistakably her children. Just within reach, the shadows clung to their forms like tentacles, trying to drag them under. Help us. Sarah lunged for them, an instinct igniting in her. I'm coming. But as she grasped at the shadowy figures, her hands closed around nothing. They were slipping away, lost in the void. The beast's breath fanned across her face, hot and foul. She could feel its rage curling around her, taunting her. You'll never reach them. You're wrong. She spat back, a surge of power igniting her spirit. I want to be taken. I'm fighting for them. With that, she pulled the remnants of her courage deep from within, embracing the room's dark energy, shifting it just as it had shifted her. The walls shuddered, the faces screamed. She felt a sudden pull, and the shadows tried to fold into her, seizing her consciousness. Sarah fought against it, teeth gritted, claws of fury lengthening through her soul. In a final act of defiance, she thrust herself toward the apparition of her children, her vision narrowing to the small, dreamlike figures against the encroaching dark. I love you, she cried, breaking through the confines of the illusion. I will find you. Light exploded from her heart, unapologetically shattering the dark. But as it burst forth, illuminating the terrible faces, she found herself falling into an abyss. Then, everything went black. The silence had weight. Was this relief? Or a heavier darkness waiting to swallow her whole? Floating in the void, Sarah felt something tugging at her consciousness, whispering once more. Mommy, come play. What had she released? And what awaited her on the other side of this dark veil? Sarah opened her eyes, a dim light breaking through the oppressive darkness. Relief washed over her. She was outside. Somehow she'd escaped. The air was fresh, cool against her skin, yet it buzzed with electricity. She stood, disoriented, blinking against the brightness that poured through billowing clouds. The storm had passed, leaving the world damp and glistening, but the sky still flickered ominously, a reminder of horrors that lurked beneath the surface. Mia, Jake, she shouted, her voice echoing in the stillness. Panic clawed at her insides again, but something felt different this time. With each second, a flicker of hope ignited within her chest. The shadows, had they truly been vanquished? Or was this just the quiet before another storm? Desperately scanning her surroundings, she felt a pull deep within her, guiding her down familiar paths in Maple Hollow. She ran, breathless and wild, through the bloom of soft, silver-lit grass that reached to the horizon. The town lay just ahead, and as she approached, something caught her eye, a small figure standing beneath a colossal oak tree, its branches sweeping low, almost protective. Mia? She could hardly breathe, tears stinging her eyes. The figure emerged, twisting in the sunlight until there, at the edge of the grass, stood Mia, radiant and whole. A sense of impending joy overwhelmed her, and for a moment, time stood still. Mommy! Mia ran to her, arms wide open, bursting with laughter. Sarah knelt, crushing her child against her chest, fear dissipating like mist in the sun. Relief flooded through her, drowning out the torment of shadows and the echoes of the beast that might have been. Whereas Jake, fear breached the sweet moment, breaking their embrace. But just then, another figure emerged from the shadows of the oak, a small boy, tousled hair glinting in the sun. Jake alive, smiling, with an innocent light in his eyes. "Mommy, we were waiting for you." He rushed into her embrace too, a bundle of joy wrapped in warmth and safety. Sarah's heart soared. The darkness had not claimed them after all. The storm might have unleashed monstrous fears, but it had also birthed an unyielding light inside her, a beacon of hope tethered to her love for her children. And so, there they stood, bundled together in their little world. The shadows had receded. With the storm fading behind, a new dawn began to break over Maple Hollow, casting golden hues across the landscape. The air felt lighter, memories of horror now mingling with laughter and love. As they returned home, relief blossomed into something profound within Sarah. Though darkness had surrounded her, she had found the strength within and without to confront that which tried to tear them apart. Her children felt real in her arms, their giggles surpassing any fragmented whispers of despair that had haunted her. "Mommy, let us go for ice cream," Jake chirped, skipping lightly beside her. "Yeah, ice cream," Mia echoed, clinging tightly to her hand. Sarah laughed, the kind that bubbles from the soul. "Absolutely. But only if you promise to help me look at the clouds, any storm clouds." The three of them walked hand in hand, focusing on the bright future ahead, the dark memories now behind them. She felt renewed, as if the storm had forged a stronger bond between them. Love would always be their shield. With one last glance overhead, Sarah caught sight of a few stray clouds drifting peacefully by, frozen in time reminders that storms come and go, but the light of love remains, steadfast and bright. She breathed in deep, embracing the warmth and joy bursting all around them. And with a heart full of hope, she knew they had conquered the darkness together. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, because your support matters. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this heart-pounding finale. Your engagement makes all the difference, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.